The wolf's eyes met hers through the blizzard, and Jadwiga knew this was no ordinary creature. Blood stained the snow beneath him, black as ink in the moonlight, and when he bared his teeth, she saw something that made her heart stop. Recognition. This dying beast knew her. But how? Before we discover what happens next, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button right now and tell me the city you're watching from so I can send you a hug. Trust me, you won't want to miss a single second of this story. The forest of Bialowieza had stood for thousands of years, its ancient oaks witnessing empires rise and fall, but never had it seen a night like this. Jadwiga pressed herself against the rough bark of a pine tree, her breath coming in ragged gasps that turned to frost before her eyes. She shouldn't be here. No one ventured into these woods after dark, not since the disappearances began 6 months ago. 7 villagers, gone without a trace. But her younger brother Maciej had been burning with fever for 3 days, and the rare herbs that could save him only grew in the deepest part of the forest, where even sunlight feared to tread. She clutched her basket tighter, feeling the precious plants inside. The journey back should have been simple, should have been safe. But the howling that echoed through the trees now told a different story. Not the normal sounds of the forest, these howls carried something else. Something that spoke of ancient power and terrible hunger. That's when she saw him. The wolf lay in a clearing ahead, massive beyond anything natural. His silver-gray fur was matted with blood, and a jagged wound split his side open, revealing muscle and bone beneath. But it was his eyes that held her frozen, golden eyes that blazed with an intelligence no animal should possess. They locked onto hers, and in that moment, Jadwiga felt the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing against her mind. Run, every instinct screamed. Run back to the village, to safety, to the life you know. But something deeper, something she couldn't name, rooted her feet to the frozen ground. The wolf tried to stand, his legs trembling with effort. He managed to lift his massive head, and that's when Jadwiga saw the collar. No, not a collar, a torque of pure silver, ancient and covered in symbols she'd never seen before. It was embedded in his fur, growing out of his very flesh as if it had been there since birth. The metal pulsed with a faint blue light that seemed to beat in time with the creature's laboring heart. He collapsed again, his golden eyes never leaving her face. And then, impossibly, inexplicably, she heard a voice. Not in her ears, but in her mind, rough and commanding even in its weakness. "Help me, daughter of Miroslav." Jadwiga's basket fell from her hands. Her father's name. This creature knew her father's name, and her father had been dead for 10 years. She should run. She should scream. Instead, she found herself moving forward, her feet crunching through the snow, closing the distance between herself and this impossible being. "Who are you?" she whispered, though she didn't know if the words would reach him. The wolf's sides heaved with each breath, and fresh blood pulsed from his wound. "My name." The voice in her mind grew fainter. "Is Włodzimierz. And I am so much more than I appear." Włodzimierz. The name rang through her like a bell, stirring memories that weren't her own. Her grandmother, before she died, had told stories around the fire. Stories of the old kingdom, before men ruled these lands alone. Stories of the shapeshifters, the ones who walked between 2 worlds, who held the balance between civilization and wilderness. Stories everyone dismissed as fairy tales. But fairy tales didn't bleed in the snow before you. Jadwiga knelt beside the massive wolf, her hands hovering over his wound. "I don't know how to help you. I'm just a healer's daughter. I work with herbs and poultices, not." "You carry the gift," Włodzimierz interrupted, his mental voice gaining a desperate edge. "I can smell it on you. The old blood. The power your father tried to hide by marrying a human woman and pretending to be nothing more than a village herbalist. But you're more than that, Jadwiga. You've always been more." Her hands trembled. The gift. She'd felt it sometimes in quiet moments, a warmth in her palms when she touched sick animals, a knowing when she mixed herbs that went beyond mere learning. Her father had made her promise never to speak of it, never to let it show. People fear what they don't understand, he'd told her on his deathbed. Promise me you'll be normal. Promise me you'll be safe. But there was nothing safe about this moment. She pressed her hands to the wolf's wound, feeling the torn flesh hot and wet beneath her fingers. The warmth started as a tingle in her chest, then spread down her arms like liquid fire. She gasped as energy poured out of her, into him, knitting muscle and sealing blood vessels with a speed that defied nature. The wound began to close, slowly, so slowly, but it was working. The wolf, Włodzimierz, shuddered beneath her touch. Careful, he warned. Too much and you'll burn yourself out. Just enough to help me transform. I can heal better in my other form. Other form. The words hung in the frozen air between them. Jadwiga pulled her hands back, watching as the wound, though not fully healed, had closed enough to stop the bleeding. The wolf struggled to his feet, standing on shaking legs. He was enormous, easily the size of a small horse, and now that she was this close, she could see the power rippling beneath his blood-matted fur. Step back, Włodzimierz commanded, and this time there was steel in his voice despite his weakness. She obeyed, retreating several paces. The wolf raised his head to the moon, and the silver torque around his neck blazed with sudden light. The air itself seemed to ripple and tear, reality bending in ways that made Jadwiga's eyes water. Bones cracked and reformed, fur receded into flesh, and where a massive wolf had stood, a man now knelt in the snow. Jadwiga couldn't breathe. He was tall, powerfully built, with the same silver-gray hair as his wolf form and those impossible golden eyes. His face was all hard angles and ancient authority, marked by a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw. He wore the torn remnants of clothing that looked like it had once been fine, a shirt of deep crimson, black trousers, and boots that bore the marks of long travel. The silver torque still circled his neck, pulsing with that same eerie blue light. But it was the wound that drew her attention now, the same jagged tear across his ribs, still oozing blood despite her healing. You see now, Włodzimierz said, his actual voice even deeper than the mental one had been, what I truly am. He tried to stand, staggered, and Jadwiga found herself rushing forward to catch him before he fell. His weight nearly dragged her down, but she braced herself, feeling the heat radiating from his skin. You're burning up, she said, all her healer's instincts overriding her fear. The wound, it's poisoned. Can smell it. Silver. Silver and wolfsbane, ground together and coated on the blade that struck me. Włodzimierz's laugh was bitter. My brother Bolesław always did believe in being thorough. Your brother. The words unlocked something in Jadwiga's memory. Her grandmother's stories, the ones she'd thought were just tales. The Alpha King, she whispered. The stories said he was betrayed by his own blood, that his brother stole the throne and cast him into exile. But that was just a story. Włodzimierz fixed her with those golden eyes. All stories come from somewhere, daughter of Miroslav. Yes, I was the Alpha King, ruler of the packs that have protected these lands since before your kind built their first villages. And yes, my brother betrayed me, cast me out with his cursed torque that prevents me from returning to my kingdom, that slowly drains my power and my life. He touched the silver at his neck, and Jadwiga saw pain flash across his face. I have wandered for 6 months, growing weaker each day. Tonight, Bolesław sent his hunters to finish what he started. They nearly succeeded. Jadwiga's mind raced. 6 months. The same time the disappearances had started in her village. The missing people, she said slowly. Was that? Not me. Włodzimierz's voice turned hard. I have never hunted humans. That is forbidden by the oldest laws. Laws my ancestors established when we first agreed to live in peace with your kind. But Bolesław. He spat the name. Bolesław sees humans as lesser creatures. Prey. He has broken every sacred law, and without me to stop him, without the true king to enforce the ancient pacts, his hunters have been taking what they please from your villages. Horror and understanding crashed through Jadwiga in equal measure. The stories all true. The old kingdom real. And the creature before her, this wounded, exiled king, was the only thing standing between her people and something far worse than they could imagine. I need to get you inside, she said, making a decision that would change everything. My cottage isn't far. I can treat your wound properly there. Mix something to counteract the poison. You would harbor me. Włodzimierz searched her face. If your villagers discover what I am, they will kill you along with me. They won't see an exiled king trying to save them. They'll see only a monster. Then we'll make sure they don't find out. Jadwiga pulled his arm across her shoulders, taking as much of his weight as she could. But we need to move. Before those hunters come back. They made slow progress through the forest, Włodzimierz leaning heavily on her. His breathing labored. Jadwiga kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting at any moment to see other wolves emerge from the shadows. But the forest remained still, holding its breath, as if waiting to see what would happen next. Why did you stop? Włodzimierz asked as they walked. When you saw me dying, why didn't you run? Any sensible person would have fled. Jadwiga considered the question. Why had she stopped? I don't know, she admitted. Maybe because I've spent my whole life being afraid of the wrong things. Afraid of my own power, afraid of standing out, afraid of being different. But when I saw you there, bleeding in the snow, she paused, searching for the right words. I saw someone who needed help. Everything else seemed less important than that. They reached the edge of the forest, and Jadwiga's cottage came into view, a small structure of wood and stone, smoke rising from its chimney. She'd built her life here, on the outskirts of the village, far enough away to practice her healing arts without too many questions, close enough to help when needed. Now, as she helped a shape-shifting king through her doorway, she realized how much that carefully constructed life was about to change. The interior was simple but warm, with dried herbs hanging from the rafters and shelves lined with jars and bottles. A fire crackled in the hearth, and in the corner, wrapped in blankets, her brother Maciej slept fitfully. Your brother, Włodzimierz noted. His keen senses missing nothing even in his weakened state. The fever. It's the white sickness, isn't it? Jadwiga nodded, guiding him to a chair near the fire. The herbs I gathered tonight should help, but... She trailed off, moving to check on Maciej. His forehead was still burning hot, his breathing shallow. Let me, Włodzimierz said quietly. Before Jadwiga could protest, he'd moved to the boy's side, placing one large hand on Maciej's forehead. The silver torque around his neck pulsed, and Jadwiga felt power move through the room like a wave. Maciej's breathing steadied, deepened. The unnatural flush faded from his cheeks. What did you do? Jadwiga whispered. Took the fever into myself. I'm strong enough to burn it out, even weakened as I am. Włodzimierz returned to the chair, and Jadwiga could see the effort had cost him. Fresh blood seeped through his torn shirt. Your brother will wake healthy in the morning. Consider it payment for your aid. You didn't need to. I did. His golden eyes were intense. A debt is a debt, Jadwiga. We of the old blood take such things seriously. She didn't argue, instead turning her attention to gathering supplies. Water, clean cloth, her strongest herbs. The wound needed to be cleaned and treated before she could attempt any more healing. As she worked, preparing her remedies, Włodzimierz watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You move like your father, he said finally. Miroslav was a friend to our kind, did you know? Long ago, before you were born, he saved the life of one of my pack members. Treated her wounds when human doctors would have let her die, and kept her secret. We never forgot that kindness. Jadwiga's hands stilled. You knew my father. Met him once when I was younger. He had the gift too, stronger even than yours, though he chose to suppress it. He wanted a simple life, wanted to protect his family from the dangers that come with power. Włodzimierz shifted, pain flickering across his face. I wonder if he'd approve of what you're doing now. Helping me puts you in terrible danger. My father taught me that healing is a gift, not a choice, Jadwiga said firmly. She approached with her basin of water and clean cloth. This is going to hurt. Did. As she cleaned the wound, Włodzimierz's muscles tensed beneath her touch, but he made no sound. The injury was deep, and the edges were blackened with poison. Silver and wolfsbane, a combination specifically designed to kill his kind. That his brother had used such a weapon spoke of premeditation, of a betrayal long in the planning. Tell me, Jadwiga said as she worked, needing to keep him conscious and talking, about your kingdom, about what it was before your brother's betrayal. Włodzimierz's eyes grew distant. It was balanced. For centuries, we maintained the peace between our kind and yours. We had territories, laws, agreements. My family had ruled for generations, since the first change, when the old gods granted certain bloodlines the ability to walk between forms. We weren't just protectors, we were guardians of something deeper. The wild places, the old magic, the boundaries between worlds. He paused as she pressed a particularly painful spot. Bolesław never understood. He saw only power to be taken, not responsibility to be honored. When our father died and the crown passed to me, he couldn't accept it. For 3 years he plotted, gathering those who shared his views, who believed humans were beneath us. How did he do it? Jadwiga asked quietly. How do you overthrow a king? From within. The bitterness in Włodzimierz's voice was sharp enough to cut. He poisoned my mate, Bolesław, made it look like illness. While I grieved, unable to think of anything but my loss, he moved against me, turned half my council, bought the loyalty of my strongest warriors. And then, during the midsummer hunt when all the packs gather, he challenged me before the entire kingdom. Jadwiga's hands paused. A challenge. An ancient right. Brother can challenge brother for the throne, but only under the full moon before witnesses, with the ancestors as judge. We fought for hours in our wolf forms. I was stronger, faster, I should have won easily. But the silver torque. His hand moved to his neck. Bolesław had it blessed by a dark witch, cursed it with binding spells. In the middle of our battle, he got close enough to fasten it around my neck. The moment the clasp closed, I felt my power begin to drain. I couldn't shift fully, couldn't access my strength. He beat me to the ground in front of everyone, and then he exiled me with a curse. I cannot return to my kingdom, cannot remove the torque, cannot reclaim my throne until I find. Stop. Until you find what? Jadwiga pressed. Włodzimierz met her eyes. True loyalty from one of your kind. A human who would stand with me against all odds, risk everything, expect nothing in return. Only then would the curse break. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Bolesław thought himself clever. What human would help a wolf? What human would risk their life for one of us? He thought he'd ensured I would die alone in exile, the torque slowly draining me until nothing remained. Jadwiga resumed her work, but her mind churned with the implications. So all these months you've been searching, wandering more like, growing weaker, watching my brother's corruption spread while I could do nothing. Tonight was meant to be the end. His hunters tracked me here, to the edge of my former territory. They planned to finish me in sight of the kingdom I can no longer enter. His voice dropped. I had accepted death, Jadwiga. Better to die with some dignity than waste away to nothing. And then, you appeared. She finished cleaning the wound and began applying a thick paste of herbs mixed with honey and other ingredients. The mixture would draw out the poison, or at least slow its spread. I'm not finished with you yet, she said. This will counteract the wolfsbane. As for the silver, she studied the blackened flesh. I'll need to try something different. The healing gift, Włodzimierz said. You'll need to go deeper than before. It could kill me, Jadwiga replied bluntly. My father warned me about pushing too hard, burning through my own life force to heal another. Then don't. His golden eyes held hers. Let me die, Jadwiga. You've already done more than anyone could ask. Take your brother, leave this place. Go south, where Bolesław's influence hasn't reached yet. Live a normal life. She should agree. She should let this wounded king fade away and take his dangerous secrets with him. It was the smart choice, the safe choice, the choice her father would have counseled. But Jadwiga thought of the 7 missing villagers, of the terror that had gripped her home for months, of the balance that had been broken. She thought of the power sleeping inside her, the gift she'd always been told to hide. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. No, she said simply. She placed both hands over the wound, closed her eyes, and reached for that warmth inside her. But this time, instead of letting it trickle out carefully, she opened herself fully to it. Power surged through her like a river breaking its banks, pouring into Włodzimierz with an intensity that made them both gasp. She felt everything: his pain, his weakness, the poison eating at him from the inside. She felt the silver torque like a collar around her own neck, felt the curse binding him, draining him. And beneath it all, she felt something else. His true nature, vast and powerful and wild, caged but not broken. Jadwiga pushed harder, forcing her healing energy into the wound, seeking out every particle of silver and wolfsbane, neutralizing them, burning them away. The poison fought back, trying to spread, trying to consume her instead, but she was relentless. The wound began to close, healthy flesh replacing blackened skin, muscle knitting together properly this time. She didn't know how long it lasted. Time seemed to stop, caught in the space between heartbeats. When she finally pulled back, gasping, the wound was gone. Only a white scar remained, barely visible against Włodzimierz's skin. The room spun around her. She felt hands catch her before she fell. Strong hands, steady hands. Włodzimierz had moved faster than she could track, and now he supported her weight as she'd supported his. "You foolish, brave woman," he murmured. "You nearly burned yourself out. But you're healed," Jadwiga managed, her voice barely a whisper. "The poison is gone." "Yes." She felt him lower her gently into the chair he'd been occupying. "Rest now. You've earned it." But she couldn't rest. There was too much at stake, too many questions. As her strength slowly returned, she studied Włodzimierz more carefully. He stood taller now, moved with more surety. The healing had helped more than just his wound. It had restored some of his depleted energy. He was still weakened, still bound by the cursed torque, but he was no longer at death's door. "What happens now?" she asked. Włodzimierz moved to the window, gazing out into the darkness. "Now, Bolesław's hunters will report that they failed to kill me. My brother will know someone helped me, and he'll want to know who. This village isn't safe anymore, Jadwiga. Neither are you. Then we run." "I run. You stay here, pretend this night never happened. If questioned, say you saw and heard nothing. With luck, they'll believe you're just another ignorant human." Jadwiga forced herself to stand, ignoring the way her legs trembled. "And the missing villagers. The people your brother's hunters have been taking. Do I pretend that never happened too?" Włodzimierz turned from the window, and in the firelight, she saw conflict warring on his face. "What would you have me do? I cannot return to my kingdom. I cannot fight my brother directly. The curse prevents it. I'm one wolf against an entire pack loyal to him." "You're not one wolf," Jadwiga said quietly. "You have me." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Włodzimierz crossed the room in 3 long strides, standing close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "You don't know what you're offering." "I'm offering to help you take back your throne." The words came out stronger than she felt. "I'm offering to stand with you against your brother, to help you break this curse. Because if we don't, more people will disappear. More will die. And eventually, Bolesław won't be content with just this region. His corruption will spread until there's nothing left of the old balance, the old laws. It's not that simple. Nothing worthwhile ever is." Jadwiga cut him off. "My father spent his life hiding, being safe, being normal. And you know what? He still died. We all die eventually. But at least this way my death might mean something. At least this way, I'm choosing to use the gift I was given instead of burying it. Włodzimierz stared at her for a long moment, and Jadwiga saw 100 emotions flicker through those golden eyes. Hope, fear, admiration, concern. Finally he spoke. The curse requires true loyalty. Not just help, but unwavering dedication. You would have to stand with me against everything. Against my brother's forces, against other packs who've sworn to him, against humans who would see you as a traitor to your kind. You would have to risk everything and you might gain nothing. Loyalty isn't something that can be commanded or bought. It has to be freely given, proven beyond doubt. I understand. Do you? He moved closer still, and Jadwiga could feel the heat radiating from him, could smell pine and earth and something wild. Because once we start down this path, there's no turning back. Bolesław will hunt us both. He'll use everything, fear, manipulation, force. He'll turn your own people against you if he can. And at the end of it all we might fail. The curse might not break. We might both die for nothing. Jadwiga thought of Maciej, sleeping peacefully now, his fever gone. She thought of the 7 missing villagers, of the fear in her community. She thought of the power inside her that she'd spent her whole life denying. And she thought of the wounded king before her, exiled and cursed for trying to maintain a balance between their worlds. I'm not doing this for nothing, she said. I'm doing it because it's right. Because someone has to. Because I can. She met his eyes steadily. Tell me what we need to do. A slow smile spread across Włodzimierz's face, transforming it from harsh to almost beautiful. First, we need to get you and your brother somewhere safe. Bolesław's hunters will come looking once they realize I survived, and this cottage will be one of the first places they search. There's an old monastery abandoned 20 years ago, about half a day's journey from here. Jadwiga's mind was already planning. It's on the edge of the deep forest, difficult to find unless you know the way. We could use it as a base. Good. We'll leave before dawn. Włodzimierz moved back to the window, his expression turning serious. But there's something else you need to understand, Jadwiga. Breaking the curse isn't the end. It's the beginning. Even if we succeed, even if your loyalty proves true and the torque releases me, we'll still have to face Bolesław. We'll have to challenge him for the throne, and that means war. The packs are divided, some still loyal to the old ways, others seduced by my brother's promises of power and freedom from the ancient laws. 'Twill be bloody. 'Twill be brutal. And many will die before it's over. How do we win? By reminding them what they've forgotten. Włodzimierz turned back to her, and in his eyes she saw the alpha king he had been. Commanding, powerful, certain. By proving that the old laws exist for a reason, that balance between our kinds isn't weakness but strength. By showing them that honor and loyalty matter more than power alone. He paused. And by finding allies. There are others like your father, humans with the old blood who remember the truth. And there are wolves who never accepted Bolesław's rule, who've been waiting for a chance to rise against him. Then we find them, Jadwiga said. We build an army of our own. They spent the remaining hours of darkness preparing. Jadwiga gathered her most essential supplies. Herbs, medicines, tools of her trade. She packed food and water, warm clothes for Maciej. Włodzimierz watched her work with an intensity that should have made her uncomfortable but somehow didn't. You remind me of her, he said suddenly. Dobrosława. Mimi. She had the same fire in her eyes, the same unwillingness to back down from what she believed was right. Jadwiga paused in her packing. Tell me about her. A shadow crossed Włodzimierz's face. She was everything. Strong, wise, fierce when she needed to be and gentle when she wanted to be. She believed in the old ways as much as I did, fought beside me to maintain the peace. We were going to have a child. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. She died before she could tell me, but I knew. I felt it the moment the poison stopped her heart, felt 2 lives end instead of 1. I'm sorry, Jadwiga said, and meant it. She couldn't imagine that kind of loss. Bolesław took everything from me that day. Włodzimierz's hands clenched into fists. My mate, my child, my future. He thought it would break me, make me weak. Perhaps it should have. But instead, his golden eyes blazed with sudden intensity. Instead, it made me understand what I was truly fighting for. Not just my throne, not just my pride. But for a world where such cruelty isn't allowed to stand unchallenged. Where loyalty and honor mean something again. Dawn was breaking when they finally left the cottage. Maciej, still groggy but healthy, rode on Włodzimierz's broad shoulders. The boy had woken to find a strange man in their home and immediately peppered him with questions. Włodzimierz had been surprisingly patient, answering in carefully vague terms that satisfied a child's curiosity without revealing too much truth. They traveled through the forest as the sun climbed higher, following paths that Jadwiga knew from years of herb gathering. Włodzimierz moved with predatory grace despite his burden, his senses alert to every sound and scent. Twice he made them stop and hide while something passed nearby. Other wolves, he'd explained quietly, likely scouts for Bolesław. The abandoned monastery appeared suddenly, rising from the forest like a ghost of an older time. Its stone walls were crumbling in places, but the structure was fundamentally sound. Jadwiga had discovered it years ago and sometimes used it when she needed to gather herbs from the deepest part of the forest. They made camp in what had once been the main chapel. There was a well nearby that still provided clean water, and the forest around them was rich with game. It wasn't comfortable, but it was safe for now. That night, after Maciej had fallen asleep wrapped in blankets by their small fire, Włodzimierz and Jadwiga sat together in the shadows. "We start tomorrow," he said. "There's a wolf I know, Zbigniew, who never accepted Bolesław's rule. He went into hiding with his family when my brother took power. If we can find him, convince him to join us, he'll know where others are hiding. We can start building our force. And if he doesn't want to join us, then we convince him." Włodzimierz's smile was grim. "Or we fail, and this all ends before it truly begins." Jadwiga stared into the fire, watching the flames dance. "Why do you think the curse specified a human's loyalty? Why not another wolf?" "Because wolves are pack animals. We're built for loyalty. It's in our nature to follow the strongest, to maintain hierarchy. There's no sacrifice in that, no choice. But humans..." He looked at her. "Humans are different. You have no instinctive need to follow us. Every day you could choose to walk away, to save yourself. True loyalty from a human means something more. It means you've chosen to stand with me despite every reason not to. That's the kind of loyalty that can break a curse woven by dark magic." "Then I guess we'd better make sure I keep choosing you," Jadwiga said lightly, though her heart was heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. The days that followed blurred together. They traveled by night, avoiding villages and main roads. Włodzimierz taught Jadwiga to move silently through the forest, to read signs in the undergrowth, to sense danger before it arrived. She taught him which herbs could extend their provisions, how to treat injuries with what grew wild, how to mask their scent with certain plant combinations. Maciej thought it was all a grand adventure. He'd bonded quickly with Włodzimierz, seeing him as the older brother or father figure he'd never had. The boy didn't know about the shape-shifting, didn't understand the danger they were in. Jadwiga wanted to keep it that way as long as possible. They found Zbigniew on the 5th night, living in a cave system with his mate and 2 adolescent children. He was a massive man in his human form, all muscle and scars, with gray-streaked dark hair and suspicious eyes. When Włodzimierz approached, identifying himself, Zbigniew's first instinct was to attack. "The exiled king comes crawling back." Zbigniew snarled, shifting partially, his hands becoming clawed. "Why? To beg for shelter. To hide among us while your brother rules. To fight," Włodzimierz replied calmly. "To take back what was stolen. To restore the old laws and the old ways." Zbigniew laughed, bitter and harsh. "You and what army? Bolesław has the loyalty of 8 packs, maybe more by now. He has the crown, the power, the strength of numbers. What do you have? Włodzimierz gestured to Jadwiga, who stood slightly behind him with Maciej. I have something Bolesław can never have. True loyalty. Zbigniew's eyes narrowed, taking in Jadwiga properly for the first time. A human. You bring a human before me and expect. He stopped, his nostrils flaring as he scented the air. Wait, she has the old blood. And the gift. I can smell it on her. Her name is Jadwiga, Włodzimierz said. She saved my life when she could have run. She's helped me when anyone else would have turned away. She stands with me by choice, asking nothing in return. That's not true, Jadwiga spoke up, stepping forward despite Zbigniew's intimidating presence. I'm asking for something. I'm asking you to help us stop Bolesław before more of my people disappear, before the corruption spreads further. I'm asking you to remember what it meant when our kinds lived in balance, when the old laws protected everyone. Zbigniew studied her for a long moment, then turned back to Włodzimierz. The curse. Has it broken? Not yet. But it will. You're that certain of her. I am. Something passed between the two men, some understanding that went beyond words. Finally Zbigniew nodded slowly. I'll hear you out. But if I join you, my family joins me. I won't separate from them again. Agreed. That night, sitting around Zbigniew's fire, they began to plan. Zbigniew knew of at least a dozen other wolves who'd rejected Bolesław's rule, scattered throughout the forest. If they could be gathered, if they could be convinced to fight. It won't be enough, Zbigniew warned. Even with all of us, we'd be outnumbered 4-1. Bolesław has been smart. He's rewarded those loyal to him, punished dissenters. He's built a power base that won't be easily shaken. Then we need more than wolves, Jadwiga said. Everyone turned to look at her. My father wasn't the only human with the old blood. There are others. Healers, wise women, people who've kept the old knowledge alive. If we can find them, convince them that this fight matters to humans as much as it does to your kind. Humans fighting alongside wolves. Zbigniew shook his head. That hasn't happened in 3 generations. Maybe that's the problem, Jadwiga countered. Maybe that's exactly why Bolesław was able to take power, because we've forgotten how to stand together. The old laws weren't just about wolves protecting territory. They were about maintaining balance between our worlds. When that balance breaks, everyone suffers. Włodzimierz was watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. She's right, he said finally. We've been thinking too small. This isn't just about reclaiming my throne. It's about restoring what should never have been broken. Over the next 2 weeks, their small group grew. Zbigniew led them to other exiled wolves, Włodzimierz, who'd been Włodzimierz's personal guard before the betrayal, Radosław and his twin sister Milena, who'd fled rather than swear allegiance to Bolesław, old Kazimierz, who'd served Włodzimierz's father and grandfather before him. Each one brought their own story of exile, their own reasons for refusing to bow to the new king. And with Jadwiga's help, they began to find the humans too. Wisława, an elderly healer who lived alone in the marshlands and remembered when humans and wolves traded knowledge freely. Bolesław, a blacksmith who'd been born with the old blood and could forge weapons that would actually work against shapeshifters. Bogusława, a young woman whose grandmother had been Włodzimierz's human liaison before the betrayal. She came with a dozen other villagers who'd grown tired of living in fear. They trained in the ruins of the monastery, learning to fight together, to trust each other despite the gulf of species between them. Włodzimierz was a patient teacher, showing the humans how to predict a wolf's movements, how to use their smaller size to their advantage. Jadwiga worked with those who had even a trace of the healing gift, teaching them to sense injuries, to channel their power more effectively. And through it all, she felt the bond between herself and Włodzimierz growing stronger. It wasn't romance. Not yet, perhaps not ever. It was something deeper, more fundamental. A connection forged in shared purpose, tested by adversity, strengthened by choice. She found herself anticipating his thoughts, understanding his unspoken concerns. And he seemed to know her in return, reading her moods, supporting her when doubt crept in. The silver torque still gleamed at his neck, still pulsed with its cursed blue light. But it was dimmer now, less oppressive. The curse was weakening, responding to something it couldn't quite deny. True loyalty, freely given, tested and proven again and again. One night, 6 weeks after their flight from Jadwiga's cottage, Włodzimierz called everyone together. They gathered in the main chapel. 37 wolves in human form and 23 humans. An army small by any standard but united by something Bolesław's forces lacked. "Tomorrow," Włodzimierz announced, his voice carrying through the stone chamber, "we begin the real fight. We've trained, we've prepared, we've built something I never thought possible. A true alliance between our kinds. But preparation means nothing without action. Tomorrow we start taking back my kingdom." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Włodzimierz stepped forward. "What's the plan, my king?" "We start small. Bolesław's power base is concentrated in the heartland, where the ancient pack grounds are. But his reach extends through lieutenants, wolves he's placed in charge of outlying territories. We target them first, one by one. We remind the packs in those territories that there's an alternative to Bolesław's rule. We give them a choice: join us or stand aside. And if they choose to fight," Radosław asked, "then we fight." Włodzimierz's golden eyes were hard. "But we fight honorably. We don't become what we're fighting against. No hunting humans, no breaking the old laws. Anyone who can't abide by that can leave now." No one moved. "Our first target is Wojciech," Włodzimierz continued. "He controls the Eastern Territory, the one closest to us. He was always ambitious, easily swayed by promises of power. He commands maybe 20 wolves, but they're spread thin trying to maintain control. If we strike fast and hard at his main compound, we can take him before he can call for reinforcements." They spent the rest of the night finalizing details. Jadwiga found herself in charge of the human contingent, responsible for positioning them to maximum effect while minimizing their vulnerability. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure. As the others dispersed to make their own preparations, Włodzimierz pulled Jadwiga aside. They walked together to the edge of the monastery grounds, where the forest pressed close and the stars blazed overhead. "You don't have to come tomorrow," he said quietly. "You could stay here with Maciej, keep him safe. You've already done more than enough." Jadwiga laughed, though there was no humor in it. "After everything, you think I'm going to sit this out? I think I'm asking you to risk your life in a battle that isn't yours. But it is mine." She turned to face him fully. "The moment I chose to help you, it became mine. The moment I saw what your brother's corruption was doing to innocent people, it became mine. You don't get to protect me from my own choices, Włodzimierz." He reached up, fingers touching the silver torque at his neck. "It's almost broken," he said softly. "I can feel it. The curse is unraveling because of you, because of what you've proven. But if you die tomorrow, if something happens to you, then you'll honor my sacrifice by winning," Jadwiga said firmly. "By taking back your throne and restoring the balance. That's how you protect me, by making sure my choice meant something." Włodzimierz stared at her for a long moment, and in his golden eyes she saw a depth of emotion that took her breath away. Then, slowly, deliberately, he went down on one knee before her. "Jadwiga, daughter of Miroslav," he said, his voice formal and ancient, "I swear to you by the old blood and the old ways, by moon and stars and the earth beneath us, if you fall tomorrow, I will not rest until your sacrifice is avenged. I will not rest until the world you fought for comes to pass. And I will tell your story, always, so that no one forgets the human woman who stood with the wolves when no one else would." Tears pricked at Jadwiga's eyes. She placed her hand on his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him through the fabric of his shirt. "Then I swear to you, Włodzimierz, last true Alpha King, I will stand with you tomorrow and every day after until this is finished or I draw my last breath. Your fight is my fight. Your victory is my victory. And if we fail, at least we fail together." Something shifted in that moment, something fundamental and irreversible. The air around them seemed to shimmer, and the silver torque at Włodzimierz's neck blazed with sudden brilliance. He gasped, his hand flying to his throat as the metal grew hot enough to burn. Jadwiga grabbed his arm, pouring her healing gift into him instinctively, trying to ease the pain. The torque cracked. A sound like breaking ice echoed through the night, and a fissure appeared in the silver metal. Blue light poured from the crack, dissipating into the air like smoke. Włodzimierz's eyes went wide, and Jadwiga felt power surge through him. Immense primal power that had been locked away for months suddenly rushing back. The torque cracked again, and then, with a final crystalline snap, it shattered completely, falling from his neck in pieces of dull, lifeless metal. Włodzimierz rose slowly, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. When he looked at Jadwiga, his eyes blazed with golden fire. "The curse," he whispered. "It's broken. I can feel everything again. My full strength, my connection to the pack lands, my power." He threw his head back and laughed, a sound of pure joy and relief. "You did it, Jadwiga. Your loyalty broke what dark magic bound." Around them, the night seemed to come alive. Jadwiga felt more than heard the response. Wolves throughout the forest, sensing their true king's return to full power, lifting their voices in recognition. Even those loyal to Bolesław would feel it, a shift in the fundamental order of things. "We need to move up the timeline," Włodzimierz said, appearing from the shadows. He must have felt it too, must have come running. "If we felt that, Bolesław felt it. He'll know you're free of the curse. He'll come for us with everything he has." Włodzimierz nodded, his expression turning serious. "Then we don't wait for dawn. We strike now, tonight, while they're still reeling from the shock. Spread the word. We move within the hour." The next 60 minutes were chaos. Warriors checking weapons, donning what armor they had, making final preparations. Jadwiga found Maciej, still sleeping peacefully, and kissed his forehead. Wisława had agreed to stay behind with the children and those too old to fight. Her brother would be safe at least. They moved through the forest like shadows, 37 wolves and 23 humans traveling in silence. Włodzimierz led them, and Jadwiga could see the difference in him now. The way he moved with absolute certainty, the way even the forest itself seemed to bend to his will. This was what a true alpha king looked like in his element, and it was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure. Wojciech's compound was a series of rough buildings in a clearing, guarded by sentries who never saw them coming. Włodzimierz's wolves struck first, taking down the guards with precision and speed. By the time the alarm was raised, they were already inside. The battle was brutal and swift. Wojciech's wolves, caught off guard and disorganized, fought with desperation but little coordination. Włodzimierz cut through them like a force of nature, his wolf form massive and silver-gray, his movements almost too fast to follow. But it was what happened after that made Jadwiga's heart soar. One by one, Wojciech's wolves began to submit, exposing their throats in the ancient gesture of surrender. They recognized true authority when they felt it, recognized the rightful king. Even Wojciech himself, backed into a corner with Włodzimierz's teeth at his throat, couldn't deny what his instincts screamed. "Do you yield?" Włodzimierz's mental voice was clear enough that even the humans could hear it, a demonstration of his returned power. "I yield," Wojciech gasped. "I yield to the true Alpha King." They took no lives that night. Every wolf who surrendered was given the same choice: join them or leave these lands entirely. Most chose to join, swelling their ranks. A few fled into the night, and Włodzimierz let them go. He wasn't Bolesław. He wouldn't rule through fear alone. But their victory came with a price. 3 of their wolves had fallen, and 5 humans were seriously wounded. Jadwiga worked through what remained of the night, using her gift to heal what she could, knowing that even as she saved these lives, the real battle still lay ahead. As dawn broke, Włodzimierz stood on the roof of the largest building, looking toward the west where the heartland of his kingdom lay. Jadwiga climbed up to join him, exhaustion making her movements clumsy. "He knows now," Włodzimierz said without turning. Bolesław knows I'm free, knows I'm coming. He'll gather his forces, call in every pack loyal to him. When we meet, it won't be a skirmish like tonight. It will be war. Then we'd better be ready for war, Jadwiga replied, standing beside him. Below, their expanded force was regrouping, tending wounds, preparing for what came next. Over the following weeks, they repeated their success. 2 more territories fell, their commanders either joining Włodzimierz or fleeing before his advance. Their army grew with each victory, 100 wolves now, then 150, then 200. And the humans came too, flooding to their banner as word spread that the true king had returned, that the old balance might be restored. But Bolesław wasn't idle. Reports came of his forces consolidating, of wolves being recalled from distant territories, of harsh punishments for any who spoke favorably of Włodzimierz's return. The usurper king was preparing for a final confrontation, staking everything on one massive battle. It came to a head on a night when the moon was full and heavy in the sky. Bolesław sent a messenger, a young wolf barely more than a pup, with a formal challenge. The usurper demands that you meet him at the first ground, the messenger said, his voice shaking. 7 days from now at moonrise. All who wish to witness may come. He says he will end you properly this time, and prove that strength matters more than your precious honor. Włodzimierz took the message calmly, even gently dismissed the terrified messenger with instructions to carry his acceptance back. When they were alone, he turned to his council, Zbigniew, Niewomir, Kazimierz, and Jadwiga, who'd earned her place among his closest advisors. The first ground, Kazimierz said heavily. It's sacred, the place where the first shapeshifters received the gift of transformation. If you fight there, the entire kingdom will witness it. But Jadwiga. He turned to her. Humans aren't allowed on the first ground during pack matters. It's one of the oldest laws. Then I'll watch from the border, Jadwiga said immediately. But I'll be there. The next 7 days passed in a blur of preparation. They drilled constantly, refined their strategies, made sure every warrior knew their role. Włodzimierz spent hours each day with Jadwiga, teaching her everything he could about pack law and tradition, about what would happen during the challenge. It will be just Bolesław and myself, he explained. Ancient tradition. Brother challenges brother, and only the brothers may fight. The rest of you will bear witness, but if anyone interferes, they forfeit everything. Bolesław knows he can't win through strength alone anymore, not now that I'm at full power, so he'll cheat. He'll find some way to bend the rules without quite breaking them. Then we prepare for that, Jadwiga said. We watch for treachery and counter it when we can. The night before they were to leave for the first ground, Włodzimierz came to find Jadwiga where she sat alone in the monastery chapel. She'd been praying, to what god she wasn't sure, but it felt right to ask for protection, for strength, for wisdom. You should be resting, she said without turning around. So should you. He sat beside her on the cold stone floor. For a while, they simply sat in silence, comfortable with each other in a way that felt both new and ancient. I need to tell you something, Włodzimierz said finally. In case tomorrow goes wrong. In case Bolesław finds a way to. Don't, Jadwiga interrupted. Don't talk like that. I have to. He turned to face her, and in the moonlight streaming through the broken roof, she could see every line of his face, every shadow. If I fall, you need to lead them. The wolves will listen to you. You've proven yourself a dozen times over. And the humans already follow you. Together, you can continue what we've started. Without you, if necessary. His hand found hers, warm and strong. Jadwiga, what you've done, what you've become, it's extraordinary. You're not just the human who helped a dying wolf anymore. You're a leader, a bridge between worlds, the proof that the old ways can work again. Promise me you'll keep fighting, no matter what happens tomorrow. She wanted to refuse, wanted to insist that nothing would happen, that he would win and restore his throne and everything would be fine. But she'd learned over these weeks that leadership meant facing uncomfortable truths. I promise, she said quietly. But you have to promise me something too. Promise me you'll fight with everything you have. No holding back, no mercy for your brother. He took too much from you to deserve anything less than your full strength. I promise. Włodzimierz lifted her hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent warmth flooding through her. Thank you, Jadwiga. For everything. For seeing a dying wolf instead of a monster. For standing with me when anyone else would have run. For proving that loyalty and honor still mean something in this world. Thank you for giving me a reason to stop hiding, she replied. For showing me that my gift isn't something to fear, but something to use. For making me believe that I can be more than what my father wanted me to be. They sat together until dawn, neither wanting to break the moment, both knowing that everything could change with the next sunset. The journey to the first ground took 2 days. They traveled in formation, their combined force moving like an army through the ancient forest. Other wolves appeared along the way. Neutral packs, those who'd sworn to neither king, coming to witness what might be the most important challenge in generations. By the time they reached the first ground, nearly 1,000 wolves had gathered, along with hundreds of humans who'd somehow gotten word and come to see history made. The first ground itself was a massive clearing, perfectly circular, ringed by standing stones older than recorded history. The grass was silver in the moonlight, and the air itself seemed to hum with ancient power. Jadwiga felt it the moment they arrived. This was a thin place, where the boundary between worlds grew permeable, where magic still lived and breathed. Bolesław was already there, standing in human form at the center of the clearing with his own forces arrayed behind him. He looked like Włodzimierz's dark reflection, same height, same build, but where Włodzimierz's hair was silver gray, Bolesław's was black as midnight. His eyes were golden too, but cold, calculating, without the warmth or honor that lit his brother's gaze. So the exile returns, Bolesław called out, his voice carrying across the clearing. Come crawling back with your tail between your legs, brother. And you brought pets, how quaint. Humans playing at war. Włodzimierz walked forward, ignoring the insult. His bearing regal despite his simple clothing. Jadwiga watched from the edge of the clearing, her heart pounding, every instinct screaming at her to run forward and stand beside him. But she couldn't. Pack law forbade it. I've come to reclaim what you stole, Bolesław, Włodzimierz said, his voice clear and strong. I challenge you for the throne, as is my right as your elder brother and the rightful heir. You challenge me. Bolesław laughed. You who spent 6 months whimpering in exile. You who needed a human woman to break your curse. You're weak, Włodzimierz. You always were. Too concerned with honor, with the old ways, with maintaining balance. The world has changed. The strong take what they want, and the weak fall beneath them. Then prove your strength, Włodzimierz replied calmly. Face me here now before all these witnesses. Let them see which of us is truly strong. Bolesław's smile was sharp as a blade. Oh, I'll face you, brother. But first, let's make this interesting. He gestured, and a figure was dragged forward from among his forces. A young woman, bound and gagged, terror in her eyes. Jadwiga's blood ran cold. She recognized the woman, Bolesław, one of the missing villagers taken months ago. She was alive, but barely, emaciated and covered in bruises. You want to protect humans. Bolesław continued. Here's your chance. Win and she goes free. Lose, and I'll kill her along with every other human who dared to stand with you. Including your precious Jadwiga. His eyes found her in the crowd, and his smile widened. Oh yes, I know about her. The healer who thinks she can change the world. How sweet. How pathetic. Fury rose in Jadwiga, hot and sharp. She started forward, but Zbigniew's hand on her arm stopped her. Don't, he whispered urgently. That's what he wants. If you interfere, you break pack law, and Włodzimierz forfeits. Trust him. She forced herself to stop, to stay at the edge of the clearing, every muscle tense with the effort of restraint. Włodzimierz's expression hadn't changed, But Jadwiga could see the cold rage in his eyes. "So be it," he said quietly. "Let's end this, brother." Both men began to change. Bones cracked and reformed, muscle and sinew shifting, for sprouting across skin. In moments, two massive wolves stood in the center of the first ground. Włodzimierz silver-gray and magnificent, Bolesław midnight black and equally imposing. They circled each other, and the crowd fell silent, watching. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Bolesław struck first, a lightning-fast lunge that would have torn out Włodzimierz's throat if he hadn't dodged. They clashed in a flurry of teeth and claws, moving so fast that Jadwiga could barely follow. Blood spattered the silver grass, whose she couldn't tell. The battle raged for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. They were evenly matched, both powerful, both skilled. But Jadwiga could see the difference now. Włodzimierz fought with control, with precision, conserving his energy. Bolesław fought with wild fury, putting everything into each attack. And slowly, inexorably, Włodzimierz began to win. He landed a solid bite to Bolesław's shoulder, then another to his flank. The black wolf staggered, bleeding heavily, and Włodzimierz pressed his advantage. Within moments, he had Bolesław pinned, teeth at his brother's throat. "Yield." Włodzimierz's mental voice rang out. "Yield, and I will spare your life. You can go into exile as I did. Find redemption if you can." For a moment, Jadwiga thought it was over. Bolesław's eyes showed defeat. His body went limp in submission. But then she saw it, a glint of metal in the grass near Bolesław's paw. A dagger, hidden there before the fight began, coated with the same silver and wolfsbane mixture that had nearly killed Włodzimierz once before. "No!" she screamed, breaking pack law, breaking every rule. "It's a trap." Włodzimierz heard her warning and twisted aside just as Bolesław's paw closed around the dagger, slashing upward. The blade caught him across the ribs instead of the throat, a deep wound but not fatal. Włodzimierz roared with pain and fury, and his counterattack was devastating. His jaws closed around Bolesław's throat and ripped. The black wolf collapsed, blood pouring from the mortal wound. He shifted back to human form as he died, his golden eyes wide with shock. His last word was a whisper. "How?" "Because I didn't fight alone," Włodzimierz replied, also shifting to human form, clutching his bleeding side. "Because I had someone who cared enough to watch for treachery. Because loyalty and honor aren't weaknesses, brother. They're strengths you never understood." Bolesław's eyes went dark, and he was gone. A collective gasp ran through the crowd. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, one by one, the wolves who'd followed Bolesław began to shift to human form and kneel, exposing their throats in submission. The message was clear. They recognized the true king. Jadwiga ran to Włodzimierz, her healing gift already flowing from her hands before she'd even reached him. The wound was bad, poisoned again, but not as deep as before. She poured everything she had into healing him, dimly aware of Włodzimierz and the others forming a protective circle around them. "You broke pack law," Włodzimierz murmured, even as her power closed his wound. "You interfered in a challenge." "I saved your life," Jadwiga shot back. "Punish me later." He laughed, the sound weak but genuine. "Punish you? Jadwiga, you just proved everything I've been trying to tell them. That humans and wolves can work together, that your kind can be trusted, that the old alliance can be restored." He struggled to his feet, leaning heavily on her, and raised his voice to address the crowd. "Let all who witness here today know, this woman saved your king. Not once but twice. She stands as proof that the old ways can work, that balance between our kinds makes us stronger, not weaker." He turned to the wolves who'd followed Bolesław, who still knelt in submission. "I offer you the same choice I've offered everyone. Join me in rebuilding what was broken, or leave these lands in peace. I will not rule through fear. I will not persecute those who opposed me. But I will enforce the old laws. Humans are not prey. They are our allies, our partners in maintaining the balance." Any who can't accept this should speak now. Silence. Then one of Bolesław's former lieutenants stood. I will follow you, true king. And I will honor the old laws. One by one, the others echoed the sentiment. Not all. Some fled into the forest, choosing exile over submission. But most stayed, most accepted. Most saw what Jadwiga had seen all along, that Włodzimierz was a king worth following. The celebration lasted 3 days. Wolves from every pack came to pledge their loyalty, to witness the restoration of the throne. Humans came too, no longer afraid, ready to rebuild the bridges that had been burned. The missing villagers, including Bolesław, were found and freed from Bolesław's prisons. Families were reunited. Old alliances were renewed. And through it all, Jadwiga worked tirelessly, healing the wounded, organizing supplies, helping to establish the new order. She barely slept, barely rested, driven by the knowledge that this was just the beginning. They'd won the battle, but building the peace would take so much more. On the 4th day, Włodzimierz found her sitting alone beside a stream, finally allowing herself a moment to breathe. He sat beside her without a word, and for a while they simply listened to the water flowing over stones. What happens now? Jadwiga asked finally. Now we rebuild, Włodzimierz replied. We restore the old councils, re-establish the territories properly, make sure every pack understands and accepts the laws. We reach out to human communities, offer them the protection and partnership they should have had all along. We fix what Bolesław broke. That could take years. Probably will. He paused. I'm going to need help. Someone who understands both worlds, who can speak for humans while working with wolves. Someone who's proven their loyalty and capability beyond any doubt. He turned to look at her. I'm going to need you, Jadwiga. Not just for the next few months but for the long term. As an advisor, as a liaison, as... He trailed off, seeming uncertain for the first time since she'd known him. As what? Jadwiga prompted gently. As whatever you want to be, Włodzimierz said quietly. I won't presume to define our relationship. What we've been through together, it's forged something I don't have words for. It's not quite friendship, though you're certainly that. It's not quite partnership, though we work together perfectly. And it's not quite... He stopped again, a rare flush coloring his cheeks. Jadwiga felt her heart skip. Not quite what? Not quite love, he finished. Though it could become that if you were willing. If you wanted. I know I'm not human. I know the complications that would bring. But you've changed everything for me, Jadwiga. You showed me that hope still exists, that honor still matters, that one person's choice can change the world. And somewhere in all of that, you became the most important person in my life. She should be shocked. She should need time to think, to process, to consider all the complications he'd mentioned. But instead, she found herself laughing, tears streaming down her face, reaching for his hand. You impossible wolf, she said through her laughter and tears. Yes. Yes to all of it. Yes to helping you rebuild. Yes to standing as liaison between our peoples. Yes to seeing where this, whatever this is, might lead. I didn't stumble into that forest looking for a dying wolf to change my entire life. But I'm so glad I found you. Włodzimierz pulled her into his arms, holding her close, and Jadwiga felt something settle inside her. A sense of rightness, of being exactly where she was supposed to be. The road ahead would be difficult. There would be challenges, setbacks, wolves and humans both who resisted the changes they were trying to make. But they would face it together. In the weeks and months that followed, the true work began. Włodzimierz established his court in the ancient pack grounds, restoring the old stone hall that had stood empty during Bolesław's reign. Jadwiga stood beside him as he formed his new council, a mix of wolves and humans working together to rebuild what had been broken. Maciej thrived in the new environment, learning from both humans and wolves, becoming a bridge in his own right. Wisława established a healing school where those with a gift could learn to use it properly. Bolesław created a forge where weapons of peace, tools, plows, implements of building rather than destroying, were crafted by human hands with wolf protection. Villages that had lived in fear slowly opened their doors again. Trade routes were established. Councils formed where representatives from human communities could voice concerns directly to wolf packs, and vice versa. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever would be. There were incidents, misunderstandings, occasional conflicts that had to be mediated. But the framework was there, growing stronger each day. And through it all, the relationship between Jadwiga and Włodzimierz deepened. They worked side by side during the day, making decisions that would shape the future. They walked together in the evenings, talking through problems and possibilities. Slowly, carefully, they explored what it meant for a human and a shapeshifter to build something more than friendship. There were challenges. Włodzimierz would live for centuries if violence didn't take him first, while Jadwiga's lifespan was depressingly human. Some wolves disapproved of their king choosing a human mate. Not openly, not anymore, but the whispers remained. Some humans thought she was betraying her kind by standing so close to a wolf king. But they faced it together, and that made all the difference. 2 years after the battle at the first ground, on a night when the moon was full and the stars blazed overhead, Włodzimierz and Jadwiga stood together on a hill overlooking the pack grounds. Below them, humans and wolves mingled freely, celebrating the midsummer festival together for the first time in generations. "We did it," Jadwiga said softly. "We actually did it." "You did it," Włodzimierz corrected, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. "I was just a dying wolf in the snow until you chose to help me. And I was just a healer hiding from her own power until you showed me what I could become." She leaned into him, comfortable and content. "I think we both saved each other." "Perhaps we did." He paused, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a circlet, delicate silver wrought with intricate designs, set with a single blue stone that pulsed with soft light. "Speaking of saving each other, I have something for you." Jadwiga's breath caught. "Włodzimierz." "It's not a crown," he said quickly. "I'm not trying to make you a queen. That would need ceremonies and rituals and probably about 6 months of political negotiation." He smiled. "But it is a promise. Symbol. This was my mother's, and her mother's before her. It's traditionally given to the one person the Alpha King trusts above all others, the one who stands as their partner in all things." He placed it gently on her head, and Jadwiga felt warmth spread through her. Not just from the metal, but from the magic woven into it, magic that recognized her, accepted her, marked her as belonging. "So what do you say, Jadwiga, daughter of Miroslav?" Włodzimierz's golden eyes were soft in the moonlight. "Will you continue to stand with this stubborn wolf? Will you help me build a future where our kinds can truly live in peace? Will you be my partner, my advisor, my conscience, and, if you'll have me, my love?" She reached up and pulled his face down to hers, kissing him deeply, tasting pine and earth and moonlight. When they finally broke apart, she was smiling. "I fed a dying wolf in the woods once," she said. "Best decision I ever made." And there, on that hill under the full moon, surrounded by a world they'd fought to save and a future they'd worked to build, the healer and the king held each other close and dared to hope that the story they'd started, the story of loyalty and honor, of humans and wolves standing together, would continue long after they were gone. 'Cause some stories are worth fighting for. Some choices change everything. And sometimes when you help a dying wolf in the snow, you save more than just his life. You save the world. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe, because there are more incredible tales waiting for you. And don't forget to tell me which city you're watching from so I can send you a virtual hug. Your support means everything.